All right, y'all. Here we are live, and Bobby is on the other side. This is Bobby Spags. I'll go ahead and monologue for a second. Maybe he'll head back on here. All right. Anyway, thanks y'all for checking us out today. I've been getting specifically a bunch of emails concerning what's going on in this world, how things are unfolding, what can I do, and then it's probably been evident by a lot of the videos that we've done so far that we've been covering some of that stuff. Well, the issue is you're only getting my perspective, at least from this channel. So I wanted to hit up one of the people that I know and respect. And he's been in this game for a long, long, long time. He's something of a legend. He's something of a legend in the not just homesteading, but the preparedness world. And you're going to see from his perspective an entirely different way. It may be 180 degrees different from where you see it from me. But Bobby's been in this game a long time. And like I said, he's kind of legendary in the circles I run in regarding his wealth of knowledge and all the wonderful things. So it is a profound value that we get somebody that isn't me, that you're hearing from another point of view. And we're going to bring him on right now. Bobby, my man, how are you doing?
What's going on, Billy?
Good to see you, bro. Now, folks, what I don't know is that it's been years. Me and Bobby, I kind of moved out to Texas and then moved on to North Carolina. And we just kind of lost path with one another for the longest time. And then lo and behold, a little while ago, bam, we linked back up. It sounds like a love story, Bobby.
It's like The Notebook, but written on right in the rain pad because we're preppers, right?
Yeah. Well, you're a prepper. I'm into preparedness, bro. I don't end anything with ER these days. They turn it into a pejorative. Anything that ends in ER. Prepper.
I know it's conservative and libertarian identity politics. That's what it is.
Yeah. Well, hey, I got you on here tonight, Bobby, and I'm glad you could join me because honestly, bro, for the longest time, you were one of the guys that I would go to regarding a number of issues. Let's start with a little bit of your background so folks know exactly where you're coming from.
Okay. Well, my background pretty much puts me in straight infidel territory. I've worked for the federal government most of my life. I was in the United States Army for 16 years. I was a private security firm guy for about 3.5. I worked for the United States House of Representatives for a senior member of Congress for 8 years. And then I went to being a contractor recently until the mandates came down. And when the mandate came down, I was like, well, this isn't for me. And I left that job. And now I work back in the private sector, still in the same arena, still dealing with some of the same folks, just in a different venue.
Now, the whole time you were in the military, I remember we first met when you were still very much in the Army. Now, You've been in the preparedness world that whole time, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've been in the preparedness world since I was 17, which would have been 1996.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I remember when I was that young man, breath smelling like Similac baby formula, the whole 9 yards.
Right?
Hey,
we can run, we can jump, it didn't hurt.
Let me give a shout out. Hey, Vicky, Charles, Kip, Glenn, my man Glenn from way back. Let's see, Regina. Hey, thanks so much for all of y'all for joining us. Like Glenn said in there, Jim, hey, everybody hit that like button. It helps out and lets more people know what's going on here. Bobby's going to be dropping it like it's hot. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that. I guess that means something totally different these days than when it did when I was. Yeah, my niece.
It's a clown world.
You're doing what? You're dropping what?
It's a clown world.
It is. All right, Bobby. So I know a little bit more about your background, and of course you held back quite a bit. Folks, this guy is a cat's meow when it comes to all things preparedness. And like I said, he's been one of the guys I go to back in the day. And he's been at it a long time, as long as me. And he's got an entirely different perspective on things. So hopefully we're going to run through the gamut. If you got questions, throw them in there. Maybe Bobby can get to them. Bobby, are you able to see the chat at all on your end?
Let's see here. Oh, yes, there they are. Hello, everybody.
Okay, cool. If you see anybody that has a question for you, feel free to just jump off. We're going to freestyle this, y'all.
Sure.
But hey, Bobby, let's just start right from the very beginning, man. I mean, Okay, it doesn't take, you don't have to be some political prognosticator to know what's going on in the world right now.
Mhm.
What is the biggest thing on your radar right now?
That everything we're being shown in the media, this includes legacy media, and it also includes in many aspects alternative media, is a giant perpetuated psychological operation in order to usher in a digital paperless currency system for the West. The war with Russia and Ukraine, I don't know what level of conspiracy some people get into, but the fact is, most of this has been manipulated. Most of it's been created. Um, there are no good guys, despite what people on the right and even people in my circles tend to think. There are no good guys in this. It's bad guy upon bad guy, and we would be very well. We would do very well if we don't take sides, and if we look towards securing our own financial stability with our families more than anything else.
We could end the broadcast right now, bro, because we don't have any disagreement on any of that. I mean, I see it exactly the same way. I don't think, everything we're told right now is said to us by profligate liars, prostitutes, everybody. What's shocking to me is that the people that were waking up to the previous scam are now falling hook, line, and sinker into the latest scam.
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. It drives me nuts. It drives me nuts because in our circles, in the preparedness circle, I would say that it's definitely a crowd that leans center right. You have people like me who are completely off the political spectrum, and we're libertarian anarchists. And you have a very small percentage of people in our circles who are left. And it's very disheartening to see people on the right take up a position that they are currently taking right now on the Ukraine-Russia conflict, because it shows that once again, the psyop is strong and the truth is muddled, and it's very easy for people who should be screaming at the top of their lungs against this are now going to be swept into yet again another feverish wave of pro-war mentality. And it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And it's going to be more young kids dying for the wrong reasons all over again.
And folks, if you're new to this conversation, remember this is coming from two different soldiers right now. That's who you're hearing it from. No, just like Glenn says here in the chat, there's no left or right. We're all the same team. I've always looked at it like, Stefan Molyneux said, it's when you go into these elections right now, you're basically picking out the kind of hood ornament on the car that's about to run you over anyway.
Yep. And you're begging them for permission for everything you do along the way when you pay your taxes and pay for your licenses and do this and do that and continuously use platforms that abuse you. I mean, you're literally begging for every scrap of freedom that they so kindly give to you. And Glenn is absolutely correct. Most people like to use the analogy of it's two sides of the same coin. I'll tell you right now, it's two cheeks of the same ass. And what comes out in the middle ain't good for anybody.
Okay, let me back you up a little bit because somebody's gonna hear you wrong. You said you were an anarchist. Now that definition, let's go ahead, because just like all the things that N and E are, everybody has a misconception of what that word actually means. Sure. Now, to me, that means an absence of government.
Yes.
Do you see it any different?
Nope, absence of government. And I think a better way to coin it, so as not to scare away folks, it is the absence of a central monopoly of force. Okay. Your government, your police, any agency out there that is government run, in effect, is a monopoly, and the government claims a right to those monopolies. It's why privatized police forces are so frowned upon in this country, even though where they exist, they are hands and feet better than centralized police forces. Same with military, same with accounting, same with finances. The free market is a great thing when it's allowed to do its work, and government only muddles things and makes it worse. There's not a single program out there that anyone can show me that the government has that runs effectively, where there's not lords of waste, where bad people don't get away with doing horrible things because they have quantitative immunity or because they're in the good old boy system. It's horrible. And this is coming from a guy that works for the government for the better part of 25 years. And it is the absolute worst arbiter of everything.
That's funny because I've heard actually one of the biggest conservative talk show hosts right now. He went on to say, well, the only thing the government gets right, and you might laugh on this, the only thing the government gets right is the military. Now, what do you say to that? Because I
Absolutely
remember
not.
every October, what would happen? Every October, we'd go out there, we'd shoot up, we'd blow up every claymore, we'd take all the C4 and all these other. Hopefully, we don't get knocked off for this. But all in the job I used to do, October came around, we wasted everything we had. So
Sure.
don't tell me that the military is the best.
Look, if anyone actually thinks that the United States military is proof positive the government can do something right, then explain to me why we have not had a constitutionally declared war since World War II. And yet we have been involved in police actions around the world, from Korea to Bosnia to Vietnam to the Middle East and now potentially in Europe, all of which are undeclared, all of which do not have congressional permission to happen. I mean, if the military is going to be your gauge of what is run correctly, then you have a very small standard. And that's all I can say about that. The military is not run well, not at all.
All right, now that we've run off probably half of the people in the chat right now. No, you're dealing with a very awake audience. I mean, if it's the typical, I'm looking at the names that are flying up and down here, and a lot of these folks, they've reached out to me in a number of different ways. So I think we're in good company. Okay, now
I got to give a shout out real quick. Hold on, this comment just one. Sergeant Retired Charlie. Why did the Libertarian chicken cross the road? None of your stinking business. Am I being detained? You, sir, have won the internet for the night.
Touche, Sergeant Charlie. Oh man, that's what I'm talking about, Bobby.
Sergeant Charlie, I raise my yellow jacket to you, sir.
Oh my goodness, yeah, I'm sure. Bobby, this is a really good way to start. Okay, now that we basically covered that we're not believing any of the mainstream prostitutes, we're not believing basically anything that's being told to us by any mainstream or even some of these off the beaten trail, kind of sources. Let's get into the brass tacks as far as everybody sees what's going on. Depending on whom you would listen to, we are headed for a massive, massive grain shortfall. Russia, Ukraine, what do they get? What do we get from them? A whole lot of nitrogen-based fertilizer, a whole lot of grain. Why do you think that wicked SOB Stalin went in there and murdered 8 million Ukrainians back in the day when he was running things? Okay, so we got that issue. We got all these other issues. I mean, don't even get me started on the so-called chicken flu, swine flu, all these other things going on right now. People are wondering, they're looking for solutions right now. And I've been doing the best I can to cover as much as I can in a lot of videos. And every one of them as of late tries to have something of a preparedness slant to all of it. Where's your head at? Where do you think people should start right now? And Bobby, I mean, you let it all hang out, bro. I don't care what it is. Let them know, because it's important that a lot of folks hear a perspective that ain't coming from me, that comes from a guy I look up to. So what do you tell those folks as far as the ones that, hey, I just woke up, what do I do?
Okay, if we're talking someone who's fresh and brand new, the rule of threes: air, water, and food. Your body can survive 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food. That's where you start. Air. Get a good pro mask. Don't get some Chechnyan shit that you found on Cheaper Than Dirt. Don't buy the cheap stuff. Get a good pro mask. Probably the best entry-level mask you can get is an Israeli M15. It's a mask that they use for their civilian population and some of their law enforcement agencies. But the M15 is probably the most affordable mask that actually works, and it takes standard filters like every other mask. Water. Get a Sawyer Mini. Ignore Life Straw, ignore Berkey, ignore all the expensive stuff. Get a Sawyer Mini. They're $20. Why? Because they filter down to 0.01 microns, which is better than anything else on the market. They filter 100,000 gallons. They come with a pouch to put your water in. They can attach to any standard 1 or 2 liter bottle, and they can come with a straw to be drank directly from the source. It's a ceramic filter, and it comes with a back flush syringe that you can use to keep it and maintain it. I have drank with my Sawyer Mini out of dozens of stock ponds on prepping campouts, right? Where you just go out there with your pack and nothing else. I will go up to any stock pond full of cow poo, put my Sawyer Mini, pop the straw on, and drink directly from that source. I won't boil it. I don't need to, because what I have works. So that's, and then food, 3-prong approach to food right now, in a little bit, and prolonged sustainability. So right now, Thrive Life, freeze-dried food, Mountain House, all that kind of stuff is really good right now, right? So if something happens right now, I don't have time to start a garden. If something happens right now, I don't have time to go scavenge. I need something to feed my family now. So get some freeze-dried food, get some canned food. I put back canned food that my family already eats, so I know they're going to eat it. It's not like I'm opening some space stuff that was rejected by NASA in the 80s and hoping my family will eat it. Stock what you eat. So canned stuff. If you do your own canning, great. But that kind of falls more into part 2. So that's right now. In a minute from now is your garden. Start a garden. Learn how to grow things. Look up what kind of things can be in the same garden boxes as each other. Learn what you might need to do to your soil. Learn how to fertilize your soil correctly. Learn how not to use commercial weed killers and pesticides. Learn what pests live in your area so you can identify them if they're on your plants. And then that moves into sustainability, which is reclaiming your own seeds, understanding how to store your own seeds, canning your own food. Like I canned enough tomatoes last year to last me for 3 years. And we will go through them faster than that, obviously. But I mean, you want to have enough put back and you want to have cycles put in place to that so that if you have to pick up and run, you have the ability to still eat, breathe, and drink clean water, essentially. That's where I would start. All the other stuff you can get to. I'm a full subscriber in the concept of full spectrum preparedness. In fact, the expo that I used to put on, that Billy used to actually MC for me, was called Full Spectrum Preparedness, because it wasn't just about buying guns. It wasn't just about buying ammo. It wasn't just about buying beans. It was about every aspect of preparedness and learning how to mitigate threats as much as possible and in as many ways as possible and as affordably as possible.
Bobby, that's exact. I mean, I'm so glad you're on here tonight because I just learned a couple of things, as I knew that I would, regarding water. I didn't even know about those straws. I mean, it's always been my thing to boil it, but also, and one of those things where 2 is 1, have multiple. I mean, like out here where I live in these hills, water comes easily in such a place. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it comes from the sky, but we got streams and ponds, and not everybody has that. Sandy Gilchrist said something. It's already passed by, and William told me not to touch his computer because he swears I'm going to blow it up if I do. She mentioned something about why on earth are we selling, and I think it goes right back to a statement you made earlier. She says, why on earth are we exporting grain when we got people here that need it? I mean, for me and you, I think that's a rhetorical question. Do you want to touch any of that?
A lot of the agreements that our government came up with go back to the Nixon era. Many of the grain arrangements go back to Nixon, Carter, and Reagan. It all has to do with international banking, essentially, and it has to do with agreements made across the pond with different countries in order to bolster their economy at the same time we claimed to be bolstering our own. And at the end of the day, America always gave away more than it took. Always. Because at the heart of all of these international trade deals is progressive thought. And progressivism is a disease that has infected both the left and the right. There are plenty of progressive Republicans. You hear that term and you instantly think Democrat. But the truth is that most Republicans today are also progressive. And the progressive shift in the Republican Party really started to take place just prior to the Reagan administration. So, yeah, we give away, or we sell grain, we import grain. It doesn't make a lot of sense unless you're an international banker and a progressive who wants to see the United States brought low to the same level of the average European country. These people making these agreements do so because they don't want American superiority. They don't want us to be the big dog on the block. And so when these trades go back and forth, it is generally at our disadvantage.
Yeah, Glenn says Mitt Romney and Liz Cheney, for examples. Touche.
You're not wrong.
I have no disagreement on that.
I've met Mitt Romney in person. He's a very, very treacherous man. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh, Mittens?
Oh, yeah. I will throw names out all day. I don't care.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say the thing. I can't say it anymore. Okay, Bobby. So we know where the problems exist. Or at least I think by and large, many of the people certainly in this chat. I want to try to drift into solutions. And I've been trying to do a lot of that regarding, the things I try to put up as of late. And to be honest with you, it just kind of drives me crazy sometimes because I'd love to be able to just teach permaculture, which is, if you follow it to its natural conclusion, like an American homestead says, it leads you to a homestead. Preparedness leads you to a homestead in one capacity or another. I'm hearing a lot of folks talking about some serious meat shortages, big time grain shortages, as we talked about a little while ago.
Huge.
I mean, you're looking at, honestly, I went down, dig this. I went down, I think it was Friday last week, to the people that actually own the farm store. And usually she's pretty laid back, easy going, very sweet. And she was then. And I said, so what's new? What's going on? And she says, Billy, you better get whatever you need now. She says, these grain suppliers are telling me it's going to be $10 a loaf.
Yep.
And I'm like, a loaf of what? And she says, a loaf of bread. So she says, we're growing our garden bigger than ever, blah, 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 blah. Now, this is a woman who is getting it. She and her dad own this store. It's the only farm store around here. Okay, so if we're looking at $10 an hour loaf, how do the people in this chat and everybody else that's likely to watch this, how do they mitigate that?
Well, as part of your food preps, you should have wheat berries. You should also learn what can be used as wheat. There are plenty of wild grasses that aren't wheat that you can use to make bread. You just have to learn what they are and how to identify them and how to use them. Get a grain mill. Get a good quality grain mill for your house. If you have a bug out location, if you have a retreat, whatever fancy word from some novel you want to use for it, if you have one, put a second one there. You can get good grain mills for about $300. Probably give or take on that price a little bit. That's kind of the price range on the ones we settled in years ago. They might be more expensive now just because of shipping issues and supply chain issues that are taking place. But get a grain mill and learn how to make your own flour. Learn how to make your own bread. Learn how to keep yeast alive. There's a lot of things you can be doing, and it's all free. It's all easy stuff to do. You just have to find someone who knows how to do it, or this awesome little app that we're on now, YouTube. YouTube, for all intents and purposes, can actually make education, like public education, obsolete. You can find anything you need on this, and you can find out how to make bread. You can find out how to keep your yeast alive. You can find out how to do all sorts of things that can help mitigate supply shortages for meat and for grains. You brought up grains with Ukraine. Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe. And when Russia takes it, and they will absolutely have control of the vast majority of the world's grain. We import our wheat from Russia. China right now has bought up something in the vicinity of 60% of the world's supply of grains for 2022.
Yep.
Between these two countries, you are going to be begging for bread if you don't learn how to make it yourself, or if you don't learn how to grow the things you need to make it. If you don't learn alternatives, if you live in a climate where you can't grow wheat, well, are there natural grasses in your area that flower that you can turn into wheat? There is here in Kansas where I live. There's plenty of it lying around. There's prairie grass with a little tuft at the end. You can take that and grind it up for wheat. Doesn't taste nearly as good as your store-bought Wonder Bread, but it's bread nonetheless. And learning how to find alternatives to our spoiled, soft American palates is something you should be doing right now. Because if you're not used to eating things that you don't buy at Walmart or don't buy at Kroger or don't buy at Hy-Vee or wherever, and all of a sudden you're eating nothing but survival foods, you are going to have a very hard shock to your system. You should be doing this now, making homemade breads now, growing things now, learning what's edible in your backyard now, and actually eating it. One of the things my group and I did a long time ago is we took a day, went out in the backyard, picked probably, a whole big basket full of dandelion flowers and stems, and we made 8 different things from dandelions that you can do. And some of it tasted good, some of it didn't taste good, but now we know. And we now know how to use what's considered a weed to sustain ourselves if necessary.
Well, I guarantee there's a whole lot of weeds growing up in Kansas that people ain't making bread out of right now. But
well, hey, who am I to judge?
Yeah.
You do what you got to do for a good time on Friday night. None of my business.
Yeah, man, if I knew all the Hooter Bandits, if I could stand them all up in Kansas and Oklahoma, man, it'd be a heck of a population. Okay, Bobby, I want to hit into something else. Another one that a lot of people aren't covering, and I barely touched it. And that's the problem with a YouTube video a lot of times, is that I'm speaking extemporaneously. And as I'm doing it, I get done and I wish, oh my goodness, man, there were so many things I wanted to say, so many different things I wanted to get out. One thing I remember, the first time I ever went over your house, I went there for one solitary purpose. And it's been many moons ago. Maybe you don't remember. And it was advice from you regarding who to forward up with and the decisions you should make and how you went about doing it. And despite having your advice, I did it all wrong 2 more times after I asked you. And as a little side note, it wasn't with my friends, Darren and Patty, which I know you know. Those guys are great. And a number of others.
Darren and Patty.
Yep. It's my family where I made the mistake of forwarding up with. Now, you are, like I said, that was the first time I ever went to your house, was to get advice on how to go about doing that. So can you please, because that is good night, man. I can't even tell you how many people as of late have hit me up asking, how do I go about picking out? Okay, bro, what is your, because you've been at this, at least with a group, for a very, very, very long time. Drop some knowledge out here for all of us when you decide to pick out people you're going to team up with.
My group has been around for 17 years, and it's been the same core people. We're very fortunate in that. We've, of course, had growing pains. We've had our share of drama at times. You can't get that many preppers into one room without at least an argument breaking out at some point, right? I mean, everyone who's in the preparedness world is an alpha type for the most part, and they all think they know everything. And when I was younger, I thought I knew everything, and now I realize I didn't know anything, But when it comes to group dynamics, it is probably one of the most important things that you're going to have to consider is who you allow into your group. And one of the things I tell people, and this is a very unpopular position to take, but it is a true position to take, everything in life is an economic decision. Everything, from who you date to who you marry, to who you call friend, to what car you drive, to what you decide to buy at the grocery store today, to what pair of jeans you have on. Everything in life is an economic decision. Now, by that, I don't mean necessarily fiat money. I'm not saying that you're exchanging dollar bills all the time, but the thing is, there's a give and take with everything you do. And there's going to be a give and take with every person you bring into your group. There is no group out there with 20 drones, all of the same person, who all have the same opinions about everything. So you have to learn to bridge those geographical pits in landscape between you and other people. I started out with my very core family and friends. And I started out by picking the core of my family and friends that I knew would be receptive to the idea. So we started there. My wife, obviously, I would never do anything without her. Other family members, and then some really close friend members, or friends that I've known for years. And I picked them because of what they brought to the table. Sure, I love and like everybody in my life, but I guarantee you that, let's say, a hypothetical uncle who's 350 pounds, bedridden, type 2 diabetic, has hypertension, and voted for Biden in the last election is probably not the dude you want to bring into your preparedness group. The emo niece who cuts herself to get attention, dyes her hair red, dyes her armpit hair to show feminist powers, probably isn't the person you want to bring into your group. Not because you don't love her, not because you don't like her, not because she's not a part of your family, but what is she going to do when there are mortars dropping all around you? What is she going to do when the water tower supplying your little town gets hit by an RPG? What is she going to do? What is that uncle going to do? What is your friend who's never held down a solid job in their life going to do when all of a sudden they're watching their children retching on the couch from starvation pains? You have to imagine the absolute worst things in the world and then think to yourself honestly, how is this person or that person going to likely react to it? And if you cannot come up with an honest answer that is favorable towards the survival of your own family, then you don't need to bring them into your group. And it doesn't matter how much you love them or how much you like them, because ultimately we all do this for our families. I do this for my wife. I do this for my children. I do this for my grandchild. You can be a really good friend of mine, but if I see you as a liability to my wife and my children, you're not coming into my group. It's that simple. So once you start from that foundation and you get your core group built, you have to come up with a set of rules that you all agree to voluntarily follow, right? Again, this isn't centralized government. This isn't a monopoly. You cannot run a prepper group like it's the army. It doesn't work. Unless you have nothing but single dudes who are all in the army and all know that system, and there's no kids and there's no wives and there's no extended family, you can't do it. It just doesn't work. So you have to come up with a system of rules that everybody ratifies. When we started with a charter. We signed it. All of us signed our names to it, very much in the same way that our founding fathers signed the Declaration of Independence. You put your name on something, it now is yours. You have ownership of it. And it might seem trivial, but we are a species that attaches ourselves to the symbolism of what we do. It's why there's symbolism in everything. So come up with symbolism that incorporates your group to its members so they all have ownership. Once you have that, you have to come up with a way to make money, quite frankly. And this is going to be where I get into some weeds, because your state might have certain laws against this. Terminology is important. Look up your local state regulations on dues. Most states have laws on the books that if you have an organization that collects dues, you have to pay taxes. So we don't have dues, right? We have a vestment program, and you are allowed to pay into a vestment program. And by using certain terminology, you can get around all that nonsense. And yes, we have to do that. We have to be defensive as people in the preparedness industry, because literally everybody else around us is gunning for our heads. Everybody wants us to be deplatformed. Everybody wants us to be silenced. Everybody wants us to be put in some weird prison camp. You have to be careful. And so I would highly encourage people forming groups to use caution with the terms and the words you use. Another example, the expo that we used to put on, we couldn't have raffles because, again, the Kansas Gaming Commission, if you have a raffle, you have to do it through the Kansas Gaming Commission. Again, a lovely example of why monopolies are horrible things, because they absolutely can control every aspect of what should be just a voluntary transaction between you and another consenting adult, right? So know your rules, know your laws, build your core foundation, come up with a set of rules, sign your name to it, ratify it, make it symbolic to the people with whom you want it to be important to, and then you start to grow. And everything is a growing pain. Very few prepping groups that I've ever known, if any, didn't have growing pains. Mine had plenty of growing pains. But once you weather those growing pains and you come up with a system that works, then you just meet regularly, you practice certain things, you assign people different jobs within the group so that they all have a job and a responsibility to the group. Every time you meet, whoever's in charge of the group and whatever system you have, make them hold people accountable. And when you hold people accountable, they learn to become accountable, and it becomes a very sympathetic system.
Man, that's a fantastic answer. I mean, yeah, get loose or get lost. I mean, and at the end of the day, just because they're family doesn't make them good for you. That's a fact. I mean, I can attest to that. I mean, the only bad experiences I ever had, just for anybody out there who may benefit from this, the only bad experiences I ever had in the preparedness life was linking up with family. And they thought because we shared DNA, they were entitled to 50% of the crops that me, Michelle, and William did 100% of, or all the chickens. It comes butchery day, like that Snoop Dogg song, got me some Seagram's gin. Everybody got the cups, but they ain't chipped in. That's right. Exactly what happened. It was, yep. That didn't work out. It didn't work out 2 different times that I tried that with different family members. So, there's nothing wrong with making my own family and all this. And that's exactly what a lot of these folks, as you well know, come to be. Now, Bobby, yes. Let's kind of segue into threats out there. We can call it a SWOT analysis, strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. But let's just go straight to the threats department. Now, okay, it is Russia. And I'm glad, honestly, frankly, I thought I'd get a little more flack for it because I've never endorsed, and believe me, there's a number of people hitting me up about it, especially with
Mhm.
our growth as of late, about hitting me up about endorsing this product or that. I have only ever once endorsed a product. I told people, hey, I use this, but I've never once aggrandized myself with a product out there before EMP Shield. Now, I want to
Yeah,
ask you
yeah,
regarding, because I see it behind you.
yeah.
I see it right there behind you.
That's one of mine. I have several of them.
Right now, there are a number of people out there. It's not cheap, but then again, making sure that my truck's going to get me home if something jumps off, especially when we're in the middle of a potential conflict with Russia,
Mhm.
of all things. Because frankly, if they were to do a nuke attack on this country, it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense for them to drop a bunch of nuclear bombs and then have to wait another couple of hundred years before they could occupy the
Right.
land.
Yep.
Boy, it would sure make a whole lot of sense if you could have us go at each other's throats, if that's something they decide to do. Huh? EMP sure makes a whole lot of sense. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, do you think that's a credible threat?
It is probably the most credible threat on the table right now. And here's why. Again, without going into too much of what I currently do, I just came back from a convention in New York. And this convention is invite only. You have to have either a certain level of security clearance or be invited because of who you are and what you do. It's not something that the general public has access to. But in that room were people like Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, three companies that do radiation hardening for satellites. Um, and then you could probably list any three-letter um, agency, and they were there. Um, Half of the things that went on during that convention, I was not allowed to participate in simply because I don't have a PhD, and two, I don't have the highest level of clearance, which right now I'm trying to work on that so I can start attending better things. But the overall opinion and the consensus within the establishment is that it's not a matter of if anymore. The fact is that Russia and China have outpaced us in the hypersonic weapons category. We are lagging miserably behind in hypersonic weapons. Nobody, and by nobody I mean major powers, us, China, or Russia, have any desire to drop a nuclear weapon on an actual city. However, because there's a term called the bloodless weapon, and that's what the EMP is. It is why Russia and China and our shift into what's called fourth generation warfare, which is what we are currently engaging in right now. Part of the doctrine of fourth gen warfare is that EMPs can be used at will with little resistance because of the fact nobody will die from an EMP. An EMP is typically detonated 30 kilometers above the Earth. By the time all transient radiation hits through the ionosphere, it's dissipated. You don't get radiation poisoning from an EMP that's detonated that high up. However, it kills electronics. It kills electronic systems. And within the first year alone, the Department of Homeland Security has already stated that 90% of America will die if a single EMP strikes in the middle of the country, literally right above my house, because I'm in Kansas, which is the center of the country. And you will die because one, water sanitation goes away, and two, trash collection goes away. The two things most people don't think about when it comes to the survivability of a town, a city, a municipality is water and trash, right? Without clean flowing water, you get disease, you get stagnation, you get bacteria, you get waterborne viruses, which America does have two waterborne viruses. Without the trash guy taking your stuff away conveniently away from you, to where, again, us pampered, soft Americans are so out of touch with what really happens with the trash, where it goes, what happens to it. When that stops, when you no longer have people taking away your trash, when you no longer have the ability to flush your own shit down the toilet, when you have to come up with an outhouse, when you have to figure out how to reuse your gray water, most people will die. And they will die within a year. Most of them within the very first portion of that year, simply from disease, from lack of sanitation, and from dehydration. Russia knows this. China knows this. We know this. And we're the three countries with the biggest nuclear arsenals in the world. Nobody at this point, because let me back up, because all of these wars are precipitated on economic reasons. Again, everything in life is an economic choice. They don't want to nuke a city and then have to wait, 2 to 3 to 5 years to send in hazmat teams to clean it up in order to occupy. Why would they? Why would they destroy the material treasure of a country when you can detonate one bomb right in the center and literally knock everything out at one time? And most of the Department of Defense is not hardened. They just aren't, because the threat was always seen as something insurmountable. For the longest time, the threat of EMP was seen as so insurmountable, something so big that there was just nothing you could do short of erecting a Faraday cage. The problem with putting a Faraday cage around your house is that when the E3 portion of an EMP happens, it's a 45-minute to an hour-long ordeal, and it's just a complete reverberation within the ionosphere between it and the Earth. That comes back up through the ground. So unless you've got something under your foundation that connects to your Faraday cage, for all intents and purposes, is worthless. It just is. Which is why Faraday bags have become the big thing, because now I can take a radio, put it in a bag, seal it, and it is 100% enclosed. It is why Faraday trash cans are now a thing, because, again, there's a bottom, there's a top, there's sides. But even that only goes so far. You can only Faraday cage so many things. So, yes, I too own EMP shields. I have them on all my cars. I have them on my house. I happen to know the vice president of the company. He's a very well-known person in the Kansas preparedness circles. He lives completely off-grid, 100% solar, 100% rainwater collection. He doesn't even have an address because he's as off-grid as it gets. And I know him very well. I know some of the folks that work there. You've actually probably met a few of them at the expo. It is a Kansas-owned company, and the science is very sound. It's been tested at 2 different laboratories now at this point. It passes all military specs. It supersedes military specs. And so, yeah, I bought a few and put them on my stuff. I mean, it's less than the cost of a quarter of your annual insurance. It's a no-brainer. Put the damn thing on your house. And in the meantime, I do live in Kansas. We get thunderstorms. It will protect my my house from lightning. It's the only product that comes with a 100% lightning guarantee. CMEs, coronal mass ejection. Again, not if, but when. On that one, it will protect against that. And it also protects against dirty electricity coming down the line from your power provider. So, yeah, I've got them. And the threat is very real. I can tell you from personal experience exactly how real that threat is. And it is a real enough threat where there are enough people now finally taking notice and trying to scramble to play catch up.
That's exactly why I reached out to EMP Shield with, for me, the biggest threat is not even any of that, at least in my world. It's lightning. Any day of the week, lightning comes in here and it Kentucky fries my stuff. Now, as a journeyman electrician, I've installed transient voltage surge suppressors for years. I've been the IBEW journeyman wireman for a long, long time. And I've installed these things in, data centers. I put them in car plants. I remember a tire plant in Texarkana. There was numerous places all throughout the country I've installed these things, and not one of them had a guarantee that EMP. So that's exactly why I went with them. So
it's like if you go with Siemens or some of the other big companies, it literally says in their warranty it does not cover acts of God. Well, what the hell is lightning?
Right, and that's exactly why.
And lightning is probably the most realistic, in your face, right now threat that happens daily, right? Like when the EMP happens, it's going to happen. When a CME happens, it's going to happen. But lightning is happening every day all around you. So if you can do something to protect your home that comes with a standalone guarantee like their product does, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, and that's exactly why, with just in the lightning alone and the guarantee, because all these things I've installed, every brand you can imagine, not one of them had a guarantee. So, okay, so we talked about the EMP threat. Let's talk about some other threats regarding, we've already kind of hit the food thing. And I don't know, when I got the lady down there at the corner, not the corner store, but the place where I go to the farm store where I need anything. She is in there beside herself. They have access to everything. And she's saying, get ready for $10 a loaf bread. And she ain't joking. Everybody, while I was in there trying to pick out some seeds, which, by the way, were 3 times what I paid for them the last time. The
Right.
chips
Yep.
they had in there were 3 times as much. And I know these folks down there. I mean, we get along great. It's funny, Bobby. Everybody that walked in there, in fact, as I'm going through the seeds that they have in bulk there, I'm trying to think, okay, what do I want? I'm making my own seed mix while I'm there.
Mhm.
And as I'm in there, I can't help but overhear the conversation that's happening at the counter as people walk in, and they're literally going up to the counter. I need a bag of triple 13, or I need a ton of this. And guys are losing their ever loving mind in what it cost for fertilizer. I mean, pretty easy to get common fertilizer. And then finally, half the stuff she's telling them, look, we don't have it. These guys are losing their minds and they're pissed off. And they're like, look, I don't know what I'm going to do, man. I got to have it. There is no way I can put in my crop without having this stuff. And that's exactly what I try to cover on my channel in permaculture, where we try to use what you have available at your place and how to make the best compost in the world and all those other things. But where I want to lean into right now, Bobby, is we've covered the EMP threat. We've covered the food threat. Now, sorry about that. Pig just got lit up over there. I don't know if you heard that. Sorry, y'all.
I heard it.
Yeah.
I know that sound well. We do a pig and a cow every year.
Yeah. So, one of them got lit up over there. Took me off my point a little bit. I want to get into big thing is, I mean, at the end of the day, you don't have water, you don't have shelter. It's just a matter of time before you succumb. What advice? I mean, obviously, if an EMP jumps off, what I need it for more than anything is if it's localized. You know what? The stuff in my house didn't get burned up. I'm back in business as soon as the local transformer gets up and jumping, or a lightning strike or lightning storm passes. Let's talk about that water. Okay, EMP shuts down, and you're living in the city. You got issues, nephew. So what do you say to those people that? Well, you know what? Let me not ask a leading question, Bobby. What do you say regarding water and the best sources? Because you're the best person to ask. And folks, like I said, if you're just new, it looks like a number of people have jumped on since we started. He can't go into all his bona fides as far as, look, folks, I reach out to the best, and I've known Bobby a long, long time, and he is the best at so many things when it comes to preparedness. And he was preparedness when preparedness wasn't cool, because a lot of the people are getting into this space.
I was doing it before Y2K, man.
There you go, man. And you were doing it long before it wasn't cool. Let's talk about water. And what are some of the things people out there should be thinking about regarding water?
Well, let's talk about the biggest mistake I hear most people say. It's this mistake, this mentality can metamorphose into multiple manifestations. But the one I always hear is, well, I'm just going to head down to the river, or I'm just going to head down to the lake. Yeah, you and every other jackhole around you who didn't know what they were doing for the last 20 years is going to be there too. Then what are you going to do? You prepared to start getting into fist fights over who's got what little section of beachfront that they can access the lake? Don't rush towards your large water sources. Just don't do it. That is probably going to get more people killed, especially in cities. Let's see, I saw someone earlier made a great comment. Let me see here. I think it was Jadog321 that said cities are unsustainable. He is absolutely correct. If you're not planning right now on things you can do for water, you need to seriously give it a good look. Now, here's one thing you can do in most places, and it depends on the modernization of your water systems. If an EMP happens, you still should be able to turn on your sink tap and your bathtub, plug them up, and still get some water to come out, because water is gravity fed from these places and it pushes through your line. It's right there, which is why when you turn it on, it just opens the tap and it's there. You will get trickle in water for a good few hours after electricity goes off. So stop up your sinks, stop up your tub, and just turn every faucet on and collect what you can. Even if it's a little bit is better than nothing at all. Like I said, have a good water filter. I highly recommend the Sawyer Mini. And have it in your bag. My whole family has one Sawyer per bug out bag, one Sawyer per EDC, which is your everyday carry bag. And then I've got like 8 extras just in a wall locker sitting at my bug out location because someday someone's going to need one. I only need one for my entire life, barring it being damaged or lost, obviously. But looking into water purification pills is another route you can go. Rain collection is a good thing you can do. Again, check your local laws because most states have at least restrictions on rainwater collection. Again, as a libertarian anarchist, I don't care what they say. They're not going to take my birthday away. I have a rainwater collection system on my garage right now. Could care less what the county has to say about it. They show up to my house, it'll probably be a pretty bad day for everybody involved. Not because I want it to be, but because I'm just not going to take it down. I refuse. It's my property. So put a rain collection system out. They make solar distillers you can get where you can collect rainwater and leave it out in the sun to kill anything that might be in it. There's a million products out there. Don't just jump on the first thing you see, though. Deep dive everything. Google is your friend. DuckDuckGo is your friend. Whatever search engine you use, deep dive your water purification stuff to make sure it's legit, because there's a lot of crappy products out there too that claim to do things they can't possibly do. The one type of product you should probably stay away from is any of these super gadgety things that claim that they reclaim water from the air. Yes, they actually do reclaim water from the air. And if you want to wait 7 weeks for an ounce of water, then base your entire philosophy on reclaiming water from the air, because it is a slow process. The average machine you can buy only collects so much a day. And the rule of thumb is 2 gallons of water per person per day, 1 for drinking and 1 for gray water. So it takes 1 gallon minimum to sustain yourself when you're not engaging in high caloric burning activity. So if you're just like hunkered down, 1 gallon of water, pace that out a day. 1 gallon of gray water to wash a dish or to scrub out your beard or to wash your hair or to brush your teeth. You've got to maintain that. And you're not going to do it by collecting water from the air. I'm sorry, you just aren't going to do it. So yeah, buy a good filter. Don't go to the lakes. Don't go to the rivers. If you live anywhere on the outskirts of a city or a town and you know that there are farm ponds, start talking to your neighbors now. Start talking to the people who own stock ponds around you and be like, hey man, I'd like to have permission to fish your pond, or I'd like to be able to bring my kid over here, and teach him how to cast a fishing pole. Well, it's a stock pond. There's no fish in it. Well, can I bring him over here just to practice in a place where there's just no, this or that? Come up with a reason. Meet people, make friends with your neighbors, so that when you have to cross the fence to get to a water supply, you're not going to have the high likelihood of getting shot for trespassing.
There you go. Hey, let me address a couple of these questions real quick. There was somebody that says, can you use gray water for a garden? Absolutely. Now, black water, no. Unless you're some of these folks that William ran across doing a consultation out in the desert. Yeah, they were putting black water right directly onto their trees. So hopefully those ladies are still around. Bad idea. But even if you use gray water, you want to make sure if you can, to filter it through a reed bed or something like that.
Yes.
If you can't, we've done it otherwise. It's just going to stink a little bit.
It's going to stink. Don't use any water that has been contaminated by meat-eating animals. That's what you want to stay away from. Which is why I'll drink out of a stock pond that has cattle that walk up and drink out of it all the time, because it's all herbivore stuff, right? It's when you get into meat eating that you have to be very careful, because anything that consumes meat can put off certain bacteria in their stool that can cause waterborne illness. There is a great debate in the prepperverse about whether or not you can use human waste to fertilize. And my answer to that is, if you've gotten to that point, you did something wrong. If you have to really worry about using your own poop to fertilize your corn, you've done something wrong in your prepping somewhere along the way. And so I would absolutely not use black water to water my garden. Anything that's got human feces, anything that has your dog. Like when I have dogs, and when I compost stuff, I don't compost anything from the parts of my yard that my dog can get to, because if there's dog pee or poop anywhere that can potentially touch that leaf, I'm not composting it into my garden. Gray water, on the other hand, yes, you can use. Just be careful. It will smell bad if you don't filter it, but it can be used.
Right. And now back to that Humanor. That's what some people use. We've actually did it when we were in Texas, and it does work. But never, folks, if you do it, never, ever, ever use it on your annual plants. Use it on your trees, and it takes a year. So it's not your best use of time, by and large, in a preparedness or a survival situation. You don't have a year to wait on that. You're better off getting leaf mulch and doing something with it. So regarding your fertilizer and stuff like that, we're going to cover hopefully more and more and more and more of that. That's why we sell comfrey also at the website, because I can't even tell you all the uses that it can be, that can be done there. But also I want to back up a little bit. We're in Johnny Ranch. Hey, bro, what we're doing here isn't to discourage anybody. I'm hoping the intent here is to empower you. That's why I reach out to the best. That's exactly it. So maybe don't have a defeatist attitude as far as I would highly encourage you to say, look, I understand that you're in the hands of the Lord, and that's all well and good. But at the same time, don't give up. That's exactly why we're doing this. That's why I reached out to Bobby. So everybody here could get a point of view from somebody who's a lot smarter at so many different things than I am. And that's what I want to continue to do.
Can I address the issue of putting your faith in the Lord?
Please do.
In the Old Testament, when Joseph was in Egypt and the years of famine were coming, what did God tell Joseph to do?
Prepare.
Put 7 years of food back during the years of plenty, so you have food for the years of famine. When Jesus was with his disciples in the garden, and he said, if you have a cloak, sell it and buy a sword. I will not be with you much longer. I absolutely agree that your foundation, your spiritual foundation, is the most important thing. But I do also believe that you have to put feet to your prayer. You can't pray for an A on your test and never study. God won't give it to you. And it's the same with survival. Yes, have your faith in God. Have your spiritual foundation. Be spiritually strong. Put on the full armor of the Lord. And own an AR-15, because the guy coming across the road doesn't care about the full armor of the Lord.
Right.
That's as simple as I can put it.
Bobby, I couldn't have said it better, man. I mean, this is why, folks, this is exactly why I wanted to do this. And, Kevin Frazier always, I mean, if there was ever a guy that you needed a YouTube channel, by the way, Kevin, get one. And people are asking, Bobby, why don't you have one? Because honestly, I'm in so many different worlds, and I know you are as well. And like folks, if you're just joining us, I can't go into all the background on this good man, but I know him well, and I know he's been walking the talk for a whole lot of years. And so, in light of all the things that are unfolding right now, that is the sole reason we have him on here, to pick his brain, and hopefully he'll come back and do this a little more often, maybe address a lot more in terms of questions. I know we're coming on to about an hour here, so we're going to wind up. Look at this. Glenn says, Bobby just took us to church. Amen. And that is not the Bobby I used to know back in the day.
So, I was an atheist, man. I came home from Iraq a broken, dark man, and I left the faith. I left everything. I like to tell people I still have divorced the state because screw the monopoly on force, but I have come back to God.
That's extraordinary, because there was a time when I knew you where that was not at all your position. So it's amazing how all these, like there's that saying where the days of darkness have a way of making you see the light. Now, you've seen this coming for a long, long time. And like I said, folks, this is the guy I go to in a lot of ways. And there's also Danny from Deep South Homestead. Danny
Love
has
Danny.
his own.
Love Danny.
Yeah,
Danny and Wanda are great.
Yeah, they are wonderful, wonderful friends. And he's something of a mentor to me, a very good friend. And you guys are the ones I go to when I need advice. And hey, man, am I looking at this the right way? Am I going about this the right way? And folks, that is why Bobby is here. Bobby, people are begging you to go out there and get a channel. Is that something we can expect from you? Or?
No, my wife already will kill me if I put on. I've started so many more projects in the absence of the expo. I can only do so much before again, maintaining my family is more important to me than becoming famous on the internet. So I already do so much locally, and have my so many irons in the fire that if I tried to take time to do a YouTube channel, I'd be getting served divorce papers tomorrow. There's just
Yeah.
no way.
Yeah.
Now, I will happily come on your show, and I would happily come on to a handful of others, but that's probably about it.
Well, man, it's I can't thank you enough, Bobby. And judging by the comments I'm seeing out there, man, a whole lot of people are really appreciative. Folks, if you have any, we're going to try to do this in the future again. And like we've covered everything from food, water, threats, EMP shield, which by the way, folks, if you need one, shameless little plug here, just look down below in the description box. That's where you'll find it. You know, what to do in a lot of these. Hopefully we'll get into more specifics, but this is why I wanted him on here, folks. He's been a real friend and a blessing.
Someone said, can we see the t-shirts?
Yeah, you can see it perfectly, bro. So hopefully in the future, you can link up with us in the future, man. We're going to, folks, thank you so much for, tuning in. We'll try to do a better job next time of giving people a little more notice. I know we didn't have a whole lot.
People were wondering
and
about your shirt.
people were okay. William said people were wondering about the shirt. Bobby, you'll like this. So yeah, we both. Yeah, that's a cleaner way of saying the very same thing. I unwittingly wore this shirt, and we're doing a video right now on the pigs. I mean, it's going to take a little bit more, but anyway, that's what transpires. And my goodness, I'm wearing exactly the appropriate attire for the guy out there that is honestly the pimp daddy of preparedness, y'all. That's my friend Bobby. So
Vicky, hold on. Vicky just said something about Jordan Peterson. I'm going to be seeing Jordan Peterson in a couple weeks for my birthday.
Really?
Winning. Yeah, man. One of the guys I work with got an extra ticket. He's going to take me to see him.
Yeah, he's had quite a transformation. It's similar to yours, I think.
Jordan Peterson is probably the closest. I do not use the word hero to describe anybody. I believe idolatry is evil and hero worship is idolatry. But Jordan Peterson is about as close as it gets. And I always have to say that. And then I always follow it up with, man, I hope he never went to Epstein's Island. Because there were so many dudes that I looked up to, so many people I thought were cool. And then you're like, oh, they were on the manifest. Oh, God. And I can't watch their movies or anything anymore. So I'm like, Jordan Peterson is a wonderful man. God, I hope he's never been to Epstein's Island.
Dude, you got William over here off camera. He's like basically telling me, hey, man, we gotta slow it down. He's over here busting up too. Oh, my goodness, man. I guess that would be the litmus test for just about everybody out there, Bob.
Hey, Todd, I have a Taxation of Steph t-shirt.
Yeah, I need to get more. People are wondering where to get these shirts. Folks, we're going to cover that more, and hopefully we're going to have some folks were hitting me up about my Black Locust Matter shirts. So, yeah, we'll try to get more of those made and everything else. And, folks, we'll try to reach out to Bobby here in the near future. Man, you're a superhero, Bobby. I know you don't like that word, but
no. I'm just a guy that's failed enough to know what doesn't work.
Well, hopefully in the future, I'll take more of your advice. Hey, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Bobby. We got to do this again. Thanks so much, bro.
And the Fed. That's right, Rebel Jack.
That's what I'm talking about.
All right. Thanks for having me, Billy.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too, brother.